the premillennials, those who are of dispensational premillennialism. That's the name of the teaching, dispensational premillennialism. And we've talked about what they teach, the 7 year tribulation, the 1,000 year reign, all of those things that go along with it, marketed to today's world in such materials as the Left Behind series and other books that came out around 2000, the third millennium, the fourth millennium, and certain other books that went along with that. There was a lot of it that was out there around 1999, the late 90s and early 2000s. But what was taught before that? Because that's a teaching that came up around the 1800s, the beginning of the 1800s. You've heard of the Millerites, those who followed Miller. Nowadays they're called the Seventh-day Adventists. But the Millerites believed that Jesus was coming back in, I think it was 1848. Then they changed it to 1872, and they had 3 or 4 other dates beyond that. And then they gave up. But it's something that they've been trying for some time. But that teaching came out around 1800. What was taught before that? A lot of denominations are going with that newer teaching, and they're not looking at what was taught before that. A lot of denominations ignored Revelation altogether before that. And so their theology was only inch deep. The Catholics called it a mystery. They never talked about it. They suggested it wasn't meant to be studied and understood by the layman. The only person that was really to understand what was going to come at the end of time was the priest, the Pope and the cardinals and so on and so forth. Those who did venture into it generally taught that it was symbolic because of the apocalyptic language that was used within it. So all these things made it very difficult for anyone to understand what was going to happen at the end of time up until 1800. And so when the new teaching came along in the 1800s saying, well, he's coming back and here's what's going to take place, all these different things, people bought into it. And they would then, new people being born, being taught this from the time of their childhood, because they do immerse them in it at their childhood. I remember being taught these things when I was in 3rd grade. I went to a private school. And so they talked about the Revelation, and I'm sorry, they talked about the rapture and